Fox News' Republican presidential debate last night was the political and the media story of the week. Instead of letting New Hampshire and Iowa play kingmaker, Fox did it on its own, giving the top 10 candidates a prime time slot and relegating the rest of the field to a separate event starting hours earlier. It was a risk, and it paid off big time. Adam Riley has more.
The Cleveland debate was a spectacle, a lavish production that was highly entertaining and pretty informative. GOP frontrunner Donald Trump was, well, himself.
So, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't even be talking about illegal immigration, Chris.
But Fox's debate team didn't let Trump run unchecked. At one point, Megyn Kelly pressed Trump hard on his history of misogynistic comments.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals.
Honestly, Megyn, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you, although I could probably maybe not be.
Of course, there were 9 other candidates on the stage, and they got plenty of opportunities to weigh in on serious topics, from foreign policy to poverty.
Economic growth is the key to everything. But once you have economic growth, it is important that we reach out to people who live in the shadows.
The moderators also pushed the candidates to engage each other, which yielded a riveting exchange between Chris Christie and Rand Paul.
That's a completely ridiculous answer. I want to collect more records from terrorists, but less records from other people. How are you supposed to know, Megyn?
Use the Fourth Amendment.
How are you supposed
Use
to?
the Fourth
No, I'll
Amendment.
tell you how you
get a warrant.
Let me tell you.
Not that the debate was perfect. The Black Lives Matter movement could have been a focus, but was treated as an afterthought. Still, Nielsen ratings say the clash in Cleveland was the most watched primary debate in history. Not bad for an event that some people didn't think should happen at all.
Yeah, I have to say, this was a hit, even in Boston. For 2 hours, that thing grew in audience to the point where it had a 27 share. I mean, that is amazing in Boston. I thought they knocked it out of the park, and I thought the 3 moderators did a fabulous job. Trump was pushing back today, critical of Megyn Kelly, who, by the way, did not back down at all from him at any time. He said she was unprofessional and unprepared. Nothing could be further than the truth. The questions were all really well articulated and put forth, to the point where conservative websites were pushing back, saying, you know, the MSNBC, if they had hosted the Democrats, wouldn't have been nearly so mean. So they did their job.
Yeah, I think the criticism leading into the debate was a bit unfair. Every media organization that sponsors a debate has to have some sort of rules about who makes it in and who doesn't. And they were faced with the very difficult question of having 17 people who are semi-legitimate candidates, at least for the job. So they had to make a decision. I think that the split that they made ended up being a correct one. You know, the final decision was picking John Kasich over Rick Perry. And I think, judging on their 2 performances, the fact that Kasich did quite well in the later debate and Perry, you know, had his case of the yips in the 5, shows that was the right decision. You know, I thought that the questioning was interesting in that it was so pointed at each candidate. And I think it's the way you have to run a debate that has that many people, because it's really essentially 10 small interviews going on. There was some overlap at various times, but I thought that Fox did a really nice job, and it's rare that I get to say that.
They tailor-made the questions. It was perfect.
Well, I love that they had a lot of substance, but they also acknowledged the entertainment value and the spectacle of the entire thing. I mean, having it, I was calling it Thunderdome, like having it in this basketball arena, and having the cheering crowd, and having the lights and the color and the flash. I mean, it all fit into the idea that it's at this stage, it's important, it's substantive, it's also spectacle. Donald Trump certainly knows that and plays into it.
Speaking of Donald Trump, I thought it was interesting how the debate took a little bit out of the air of his political balloon, because there we got to see him. And it wasn't just what he said, it was the other candidates, and some of them stepping up and looking, you know, quite credible. And so I think we'll probably see in polls a little bit more evening, and his preposterous lead will maybe come down a little bit.
Well, I think even if you're a conservative woman in America, the idea that Donald Trump has called women, not Rosie O'Donnell, fat pigs and disgusting animals is kind of one of those visceral remarks you just think, oh my God. And I was unaware of that. I knew about the Rosie O'Donnell thing, but that was an isolated incident. So I think, and I love the fact that Megyn Kelly, there's a lot of blondes on Fox News, but she's a very distinguished blonde because she's really smart, really quick. I used to watch her debate with Bill O'Reilly. She would beat him. And I am sure that Donald Trump was appalled at the fact that this gorgeous gorgeous blonde, was sticking it right to him over and over again. Later on in the debate, she said, "At what point did you become a Republican?" Yeah. So I really love that. And the spectacle part of it, you know, it's going to be difficult for other places to follow because this was so Thunderdome-like, as you said, Joanna. I think subsequent debates are going to look very dull by comparison. And in a sense, this may be the way we need to make these debates more interesting because it wasn't just Donald Trump. It moved so fast.
But let's
2
face
hours.
it, he's the reason people tuned in.
He's the reason people tuned in, but I think the reason people stayed for 2 hours was how fast it moved.
It was,
boom, 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 boom.
And I think you're right. There are often these rules of decorum for debates, and people are urged, don't hold your applause till the very end. And I think accepting that this is a partisan crowd. There's the rabble out there. They're enjoying it. It's the spirit of it. It kind of goes back to the old, Lincoln Douglas debate days when this was popular entertainment. But it still should be.
I do think it also, we think back to the 2012 debates in the Republican primary where there are a number of moments when the crowd and their reactions to statements being made by candidates became the story because they were, applauding for things that other people might think were not appropriate things to applaud to. And you had the same sort of result when Trump was defending, like, oh yeah, I call women these names. There's applause coming from the crowd. I do think there is a larger image problem that the Republican Party is going to have to deal with in future debates.
You think?
We all agree on this.